Welcome back, senior devs. Sean Cannon here. In this lesson, we're going to talk about intrinsic values. These are values that come from within and are self-motivated, rather than values you might demonstrate if you succumb to peer pressure or to avoid reprimand. We'll cover those in the next module. The core intrinsic values that I want to focus on in this module are ethics, discipline, integrity, and respect. As I cover these in this module, my hope is that by the end of the video, you'll be saying, yeah, Sean, all this is super obvious. If you aren't saying that, then I highly encourage you to do some self-reflection and reevaluate your priorities in life. With that, let's start off with ethics. As software engineers, the higher we get in the career ladder, the more we are entrusted with sensitive information. When we work on client projects, or if we collect customer data on our own projects, it is our duty to treat this information with the utmost care. I recently worked on a project where the client not only stored customer passwords in plain text, but they also had a database table full of contractor information, including addresses, birthdays, emails, and social security numbers. None of this information was encrypted, and it was simply stored along all the other data in the same database. I'm not even joking. If someone working on this project lacked ethics, it would have been extremely easy for them to export the data without anybody noticing. They could sell the data or use it for their own malicious intentions. The next thing you know, some poor person's identity is stolen and their credit card score is ruined, and they have no way to track it back to this client or the hypothetical unethical developer on the project. I've also worked on several projects where legacy client systems had extremely insecure authentication, multiple people using the same shared password, or static FTP servers with no passwords. The client essentially had an open access system, available to anybody in the inner circle, simply hoping that nobody outside the circle would ever get access details. It's up to us as ethical developers to not only recommend security enhancements to our clients, but to never ever abuse the client's trust and steal any of this information. It doesn't matter if the client is mean, abusive, or doesn't pay you. There is no justification for stealing or exploiting sensitive data ever. While I fully expect every one of you who enrolled in this course to have strong ethics, this information is still valuable to you so that you can keep it on your radar that unethical developers do exist, and that it's up to us to be on the lookout for them and help go above and beyond to keep our clients' sensitive information protected. A much more common example of where ethics comes into play is when you sign an NDA with a client. You'll have insider information that absolutely cannot be used to gain a competitive advantage over your client, or for your own personal gain, like insider trading. Next up, discipline. The best definition of discipline I've heard is from Brian Tracy, who defines it as doing what you should do, when you should do it, whether you feel like it or not. It's easy to do something when you feel like it. Anybody can do that. Doing the hard work when we don't feel like it is when we rise above the competition. Discipline is actually a really easy trait to develop, but you have to actually want to develop it. All you have to do is tackle the least desirable tasks first, every day, at every opportunity. When you make a habit of doing the hard work before the easy work, or even doing any work before enjoying your time, you will start to crave that feeling of accomplishment and you will become extremely productive. One trick to building up your discipline is breaking up large tasks into small tasks which have measurable wins. You need to make sure your goals are measurable so that you can track your progress. When you're consistently making progress, it will drive that ambition and make you want to make even more progress versus putting something off or suffering from that feeling of biting off more than you can chew. Disciplined developers are reliable developers, and reliable developers get referred over and over and get offered management positions much earlier, if that's something you're interested in. The next core intrinsic value I want to cover is integrity. Integrity can be defined as doing the right thing even when no one is watching. If you toss some garbage at a waste bin and it falls onto the sidewalk instead of making it into the bin, do you pick it up and put it in the bin, even when no one is around? When you are done shopping, do you return your shopping cart to the corral in the parking lot? If yes, then congratulations, because you're way ahead of most people. This value will carry over to multiple areas of your career, and people will notice, my friend. For example, if I approve a pull request, and it just so happens that I missed some bad code and a bug was introduced, I own that and fix the bug. Even though I wasn't the author of the code that broke the app, I put my name on the code review, so it's just as much my fault as anybody else's. I'd rather be known for owning my mistakes and making things right than trying to hide my mistakes and pretending I'm infallible. Integrity crosses over a bit with ethics and discipline. Doing the right thing, of course, includes not stealing data, but I choose to cover it separately because by now we're assuming you're an ethical developer, and you're basically just owning up to situations where you weren't perfect. Nobody is perfect, but if you can hold yourself to a higher standard than anybody else and not be afraid to also hold yourself accountable for any actions you take which have a less than desirable outcome, you'll gain a massive amount of respect from your peers and your management team. People will trust you more and believe you, and will be more willing to pull you into inner circles because they believe you won't talk behind their backs or share details of something you're not supposed to. The last core value I want to cover is respect. This is a broad and slightly vague value, but it's extremely important. I've been on a ton of projects in my career that I struggled to take seriously. The client management teams didn't know what they were doing, or the client dev teams were extremely junior and frustrating to work with. But one thing that helps me overcome my struggle is that I always remind myself that this is why I'm on the project. I was hired because the junior dev team couldn't build the application. I was brought in to consult because the managers don't really understand how all the infrastructure works. My frustrations typically come from the gap where I realize I know this, but I don't feel that my client knows this. Like when I offer consulting advice and they don't use it and then fail, I'll sometimes question why I'm even there in the first place. But there are ways to deal with this. If you're ever in a situation on a project where you're working with someone and you find you're struggling to respect them as a peer, it's important to shift your perspective and find things you can respect, because once respect is gone, then all you're going to do is compromise your own integrity. You can't let the quality of your own work suffer simply because you don't respect the person you're delivering it to. If you can't respect the person, respect the position, or respect the situation, respect the opportunity, or respect the experience. There's always something positive in these working situations, so don't get caught up in all the drama about who's contributing more and who's slacking off, or which team isn't doing their job and forcing you to do more work. Respect the chance you're being given to make yourself look really good as a project savior. Unlike ethics, where situation may present itself and the ethical choice is blatantly obvious, respect is often something you need to stop, step back, assess, and dial in with it so you can maintain optimism and healthy working relationships. To summarize, before you try becoming a rockstar developer, focus first on being an ethical, integrous, disciplined, and respectful developer. These values define your character, and that character will help you succeed on any project using any stack. That wraps up this module. Keep growing, and I'll see you in the next one.